The best acknowledgements I've heard have come from Indigenous people, but I've never let the fact that I'm softer than Vanilla Ice stop me from doing bloody good versions of Kanye West songs. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders both past and present. My idea is about remembering that Australian Indigenous people are custodians of the world's oldest living culture and giving a future generation of Australians the chance to connect to that message by putting art in every classroom. Do you remember when Goodsey was booed at the SCG? A proud Indigenous man celebrating his culture and his heritage, and a role model Australian derided on his favoured sports ground. In a match where we were asked to celebrate the culture of our Indigenous players. What's worse, we've been going backwards. Nikki Winmar in '93, Kathy Freeman at the Sydney Olympics, Kevin Rudd's apology speech in 2008. All of these moments, and we still don't get it, that our Indigenous heritage that we all share should be part of our national identity. Meanwhile, across the Dutch, they're laughing at us because the Haka and Maori culture is part of what it means to be a Kiwi. So I think it's time for some tough questions. Why is this happening in Australia? Is it because we're racist? I think racism persists in many parts of our society. But for most of us, I don't think it is out and out racism. I think it's fear. We don't know enough about our Indigenous culture, and we don't know at all how to engage with it. And for that, we're fearful. We're afraid of being wrong. I've never been afraid of a piece of art, except that one time in Black Swan, when Natalie Portman walks in the room and all the portraits are talking at her. But art is accessible. There are no restrictions and an unbounded potential for creativity and inspiration. It should be, indeed could be, more important a subject than it is. I'm not talking about putting this on the side of a Qantas jumbo. I'm talking about a vital activity in all human societies and using that to transform what it means to be Australian. Indigenous art is perfectly at home in our classrooms because this idea is about learning language, history, and symbols. When you look at a situation through a different lens, all of a sudden new meaning comes to light and you develop empathy. This is Hector, pictured with his creation story and his two dogs. One of the most beautiful parts of Indigenous culture is their respect and inclusion of their elders, who are custodians of the culture. We already have great teachers who can speak through their art to the next generation. Starting in schools is great because everyone gets the same exposure. Day one of kindergarten, there's an artwork in your classroom, and by the time you finish up, you would have seen hundreds. We're growing the next generation of Australians to be proud of our Indigenous people. Like all good innovators, I first shared this idea with a supportive audience. You might think girlfriend, but no, parents. And my dad said he remembered there was an Albert Namagiri painting in the library of his public school in West Pymble. So they're already one classroom down. This next artwork is by Jaden. It's two fellas camping, and his inspiration comes from his relationship with his dad. He says it's because it's something they enjoy doing together. In my life, this is the best representation I have of my relationship to my own dad and how important it is to me. Dana's artwork also inspires me in the way that she represents the relationship she has to her four brothers. The lines between the handprints are the connections that they share. I've got four siblings too, and to me this is like looking at a photograph of our life and our relationships together. The economics are good too. The market for Aboriginal art sales peaked in 2007 at $26 million. The next year that figure halved, and since the GFC, the market for art has waned. So what we're going to do is mop up the excess supply and bolster the industry. Once we've got the art in the classrooms, we'd employ a network of Indigenous people to travel the country, to visit the classrooms and to share the culture and the stories behind the artwork. Proud Indigenous women and proud Indigenous men to share their voice and their culture centre stage. Today's world is digital, so we need a digital catalogue of all Indigenous art. We could start with the art we've put in classrooms, and then we could grow it to include Indigenous song, dance, and textiles. Think of the possibilities for school projects, future research, just curiosity. If you like the idea, you could donate art to your old school. Send some somewhere where they're not yet stocked up. We'll report it back to you in real time so that your impact on this nation is mapped in real time on a map of the nation. This is the real Australia, blue sky and red earth, and this picture is about as close as you'll get to a representation of how I feel about this idea. 4 backflips and a double deuce. I want to say thank you to AIM, who let me use the artworks of their art interns in this presentation. This This is one of them, Tanya Scott, and her mob's Jaru from the Kimberleys. She says, if viewers know Aboriginal symbols, hopefully they'll get the message of everyone coming together. Everyone coming together. I think we could all learn from that.